Moving on to our first topic of the night, the Steam Deck. You all heard of it, you've seen it, and you've seen the beautiful Schlern photography from Gamers Nexus, all right? So Andrew, why don't you tell me what you know and what's going on with that wonderful new device?
The Steam Deck? Yeah, it's an interesting product to say the least. You know, there's a lot of talk about it on the YouTube. You know, like the YouTube tech tubers, not necessarily like being gaming focused, but they're talking about this quite a bit for something that is gaming focused. So the device is a handheld gaming device. You can call it whatever you want. It might be considered a console. You can call it a handheld, maybe a portable computer. Really depends.
Basically.
It's kind of an interesting thing because it's sort of a new type of device for what it is. So it has 3 different price points. You have the base model, which starts at $399. I think it's a good starting point, but with that price point, you only get 64 gigabytes of storage, and it's eMMC, which is, if you don't know, slower storage. The next price up is $529, which is pretty big jump, and
that's a big
for
jump.
that you get a 256 gig NVMe drive. Not really, like, I know that they throw in some other stuff, but like nothing like really, like I think you get a carrying case, but either way, 256 gigs on, let's call this a console for right now. You know, that's not a ton of storage anyway, so I don't know if it's worth the jump unless you're going all the way to the top tier, which is $649, which has a 512 gig NVMe SSD. Now that is a significant price tag in my opinion. $649 is not cheap by any means, but for that you get the 512 NVMe, and that price point also gets etched anti-glare glass. So let's talk a little bit more about it. It is a device, it's a handheld with a 7-inch touchscreen display, 400 nits, 1280 by 800 resolution. So it's a little bit sharper than 720p. It's basically 720p, but it's 16 to 10 instead of 16 to 9 aspect ratio. 400 nits is great. You should be able to use it inside, outside, no matter what the scenario is. 400 nits is plenty bright for most cases. Curious to see if there's any issue if you don't have the anti-glare, but still, it's pretty bright. It does have a micro. What's up?
I was gonna say, so the APU, what do we want to call it? The CPU, the actual hardware, changes between the tiers.
Does it? Because I didn't see that on their own website.
No, that's what I'm saying. Does it? It doesn't. It does not, right?
Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So like, why not just buy the $400 one and just put a bigger SSD in it? You know?
Yeah, that's the one thing. Being that it's eMMC, I think you can do that anyway. I think they're using the same slot. You can do that with the other models for sure. The 64 gig, you'd want to double check though. I don't know if they're using a slightly different revision on the PCB to use a different type of storage device. They did say that they all use M.2 2230 form factor, so a 30 mil
so it's a short one
SSD.
half the size.
Probably, I don't think they make any 2 terabyte ones, maybe 1 terabyte.
Oh,
SSDs,
can you imagine that?
Well, following up on that, it does have support for UHS-2 and micro SD.
Oh, really?
Memory cards, yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so you can still throw a micro SD, and the nice thing about that is it's external storage. I mean, it's internal, but it's external. It's removable storage, so you can, have as many micro SDs as you want with games on them. So yeah, I mean, and they make those up to 2 terabytes, I think, which is, do they? I don't know. Maybe they do.
I think 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte one seems to be kind of rare, and I wouldn't recommend that one anyway.
Yeah, but you got like a handful of 256 or 512s. Each of those, like if you got a 512, you could probably put at least 5 games, probably 10. Most games that you're playing on Steam are not 100 gig games.
Yeah. I mean, you could download Call of Duty like 5 times on that thing, you'd be full. So
Yeah, maybe you'd be lucky to get 5 full installs with that.
Maybe four and a
Um,
half.
so, and speaking of games, there are a lot of games that they haven't verified, but they do have, I think, something like 400 Steam Deck verified games ready for launch. And there's some that just haven't been tested that are going to work fine as well. Basically, just getting into the specs a little bit deeper, let's go over the hardware. So we talked about storage and the screen, but for memory, it has 16 gigabytes of low profile DDR5 memory, which is nice. 16
DDR5,
gig.
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's
So
sweet.
I think it's soldered, but
It's got to be
16
soldered in that form
it's got to
factor.
be soldered
No
on a
way.
device
Yeah.
like that. But 16 gigs should be plenty. Like I haven't ever seen a gaming situation where you need more than 16. So, especially when you balance it out with the rest of the system. So, the APU it's running is a custom 4-core 8-thread Zen 2 plus RDNA 2 APU from AMD. And if you don't know, there are also AMD custom APUs in the Xbox Series and PS5 consoles, but those are 8-core.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this one is it runs between 2.4 and 3.5 gigahertz, depending on AMD's boost algorithm, temperature based and load based. But it uses between 4 and 15 watts. So this thing only uses 15 watts at its peak, the APU specifically, which is not a lot. When you think about a handheld, obviously you're going to have a limited amount of space for a cooling solution. So
you don't want to burn your hands either.
Yeah, exactly. So even at 15 watts, I don't think it's going to sustain that, but in bursts, I'm sure it will. So the GPU has 8 RDNA 2 CUs up to 1.6 teraflops.
8.
So it's about a third of the power of an Xbox Series S. Which, when you consider the Xbox Series S, even though it's the cheaper console that Xbox has on the market right now, it's still it's a console. This thing, the Steam Deck, fits in your hands.
It's a little bigger. It's about double the weight of a Switch OLED.
Yep. But you got to figure, unlike the Switch, this thing has built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 40 watt-hour battery. They're claiming between 2 and 8 hours of gameplay. Obviously, it's going to depend what games you're playing. It's not like a Switch where the games are optimized for that device. With this device, you're going to be playing games that are optimized for computers. So your gaming experience is going to be customizable. You can select your resolution. You can select the level of detail and tune it to your liking. So it has trackpads, joysticks, D-pads, and gyro inputs. It has a single USB-C jack for charging, peripherals, and video out. So
only one jack. That's kind of unfortunate.
What's that?
I said only one USB-C is kind of unfortunate for a device like this.
Well, USB-C, you can get a hub. And they will be...
I don't want to carry any more freaking dongles, bro.
Yeah, but what would you use 2 devices for on the go?
What if I want to charge it while I'm streaming it or something, or using my USB-C headphones or whatever? In other words, I can't charge it and do something else on the go at the same time. Like a mouse and keyboard.
It's true, but well, actually, just get a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard.
Okay, as long as it doesn't have any latency.
I mean, that's what the hub is for, but they will be releasing a dock or a docking station, whatever you want to call it, which has DisplayPort, HDMI, Gigabit Ethernet, and obviously some more USB ports. So you could go from taking this mobile, let's say it's in your backpack, and if you wanted to use this as your primary computer or just game on it at home at a desk, you bring this thing, you just plop it down in this dock and plug in the USB-C cable, the single cable, and it's going to charge, give you wired Ethernet, and give you support for up to 2 displays right there, plus your peripherals, which I think is pretty cool. I didn't see a price on the dock yet, but that just goes to show that this is really a computer at its core. So unlike most consoles that we've come to know, they are welcoming customization and different use cases. which is pretty neat. Like, depending on how powerful this thing turns out to be, you could just run this like as a handheld, and when you come home, hook it up to your TV and via Bluetooth hook up some Xbox controllers and still have like a couch gaming experience from it. I don't think it's going to be a poor performer at like 1080p level of performance because, yeah, it's a third of the performance of an Xbox Series S, but an Xbox Series S targets 1440p. So if you dial that back to 1080, I think you're going to have a pretty good experience, even with modern games. I think I covered pretty much all of the actual hardware specs. In terms of software, it runs SteamOS out of the box, which is a Linux-based operating system. But being that it is just really a computer, there shouldn't be any reason why you can't install Windows. Driver support, I'm sure, won't be perfect out of the box, but I would give that a couple months, maybe less, to get all of that situated, because Steam seems to be giving a ton of resources and development to this so that it is prime for the market, and that people who have reserved one are going to get a good experience. They're not going to be like, oh man, I wish I didn't pre-order this or reserve it because, you know, it's not ready. But from what I can tell, there are some just minor bugs that will probably be patched in like week 1 of launch. So I don't know. It's an interesting device. I think if you're interested in mobile gaming, it's like a huge leap forward. And if you're interested in like at home or using this as a computer or home console type, it's not an option. So I don't know. For people that don't have gaming computers that want to do PC gaming, you might be able to get away with just doing this with a monitor, and the handheld feature is like just in addition. So yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that. But yeah, I mean, is there anything you think is noteworthy on the Steam Deck that you've taken in from the recent media?
Yeah, so I actually watched part of Gamers Nexus's stuff on it, and
Yeah.
at least their conclusion, which I happen to agree with the stuff I've seen, it seems they have a really good hardware foundation that is very difficult to change in the future. So you already got good hardware, software updates and all that can be downloaded in the future. So we got a good platform for many years. Kind of like how Nintendo does it. They make the hardware really good. Well, good in a relative term. Okay, it's actually, they suck compared to like a cell phone, but the hardware is good and they release software that's really good for it later on. We got a lot of stuff in the chat since we were talking about that. So if you want to just catch up on that.
Yeah, one quick thing before we catch up on chat.
Yeah.
Just one other feature I forgot to mention is it has fast suspend and resume, which means you can be playing a game, hit the suspend button, and it instantly goes to sleep. And when you press it again, you're instantly back in the game. Pretty nice.
Oh, can you imagine games where you can't pause?
Yeah. No, you don't even have to pause. It's like putting your computer to sleep or hibernate or whatever. It's just ready to pick it up. And being that it's SteamOS, you can stream from your desktop to this device, assuming that you're on a network.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Let's see what's going on in the chat.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff. So you might wanna scroll up a little bit there.
Yeah, looks like we have okay.
Yeah, so since you've been talking, a lot of people have joined from a raid from somewhere. I don't know what raid this is, but apparently there was a raid. So thank you to everyone that's joined. Thank you to everyone that's joined. Why don't you address some of the messages from Matt Electron regarding your shirt and the Steam Deck?
Yeah, I don't even know. Oh yeah, this is the EVGA 20th anniversary shirt.
Why don't you show people what it looks like?
Yeah, I think they can see it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
it's just like a gold crest. I'm not really sure where it came from. Apparently I ordered this shirt a few months ago, even though their 20th anniversary was 3 years ago.
They had extra.
Yeah, I guess they didn't sell out right away. Um,
Maybe it was a required
yeah,
item to buy a GPU.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Electron Steam Deck is Linux. Yeah, so I know you're a big Linux fan. I'm not really a big Linux fan. I've used Linux plenty of times and it's not bad. It's just there's a lot of software that I consider like fairly regular use that just doesn't exist for Linux. Uh, I don't know why, but um, I guess there's always alternatives, but to me, it's like, why would I try and find alternatives to software when I just can use it fine on Windows? So, what else do we have? We don't have too much actually targeting us for discussion points, but let's see. Can't wait to get a Steam Deck, says Apple's.
I
Can
wouldn't.
it play Crisis?
Yeah,
That's a
can it
good
play
question.
Crisis? That's a good question, right? I think it can, just on the lowest settings. Because after all, it is a handheld computer, so I mean, I think it's way
Yeah,
more
I think
flexible.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, once this releases, since it's a computer, even though it's a custom APU, they can do benchmarks on it. So I'd be really curious to see where it stacks up compared to like mainstream GPUs.